Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting the channel via PayPal or Patreon. You'll find the links in the video description. I'm going to show you a very tense Sicilian defense. So this was played in the final of the Airthings Masters, the first of the Champions Chess Tour online tournaments. And this is Jan Nepomniachtchi with white against Magnus Carlsen. Now, they were due to play 8 games. On the first day they played 4 games, all drawn. The 5th game was drawn. Then Carlsen finally broke through with a win in the 6th game. So Carlsen won up, and this was the 7th game. So if Carlsen could just kind of cruise through with a couple more draws, he would be the winner. So could Nepo hit back? Let's have a look. Now this is interesting. Remember, a draw suits Carlsen, but he's going for the Sicilian, which leads, of course, to the really sharp positions. And he goes for a Taimanov. Well, we see this occasionally from him, but certainly, well, he's steering clear of the Sveshnikov, which was a big favourite, and the Najdorf. Bishop e3, so you could say this is the main line these days. And here, well, white has many options. I mean, you can go into Scheveningen with bishop e2 and castles kingside. Queen d2 is a very popular move. You can play f4, you can go bishop d3, all kinds of things. Queen f3 is very much the move of the moment, very tricky move. But Nepo goes for g4. Well, it's quite clear that he is going all out for the win. So he's playing a kind of Keres attack, or, you know, kind of English attack as well. Shooting the g-pawn down the board. And Nepo has played in this way before. So Carlsen exchanges and then plays b5. Castles queenside. Okay, so we're guaranteed a really tricky, sharp struggle with the king going to the queen side. And white is ready to attack. And Carlsen just has a couple of pieces developed. You know, these kingside pieces still on their starting blocks. King b1 tucks the king out of the way because there's going to be some kind of counterattack on the c-file fairly soon. Knight f6, so this knight comes into the game. And previously Nepo has played g5 here, but in this game he goes for f3. Rook c8. So now white always has to be careful about the pawn coming to b4. The knight moves out of the way, and then queen takes pawn. The other thing is that after rook c8, then black gets ready to play bishop c5. And certainly an exchange of pieces would be a good idea for black, considering that white has forces concentrated in the middle and black's king's still in the middle of the board. So bishop c5 is kind of a threat. g5 pushes on. Knight comes to h5, so it's a little bit out on a limb. And now white guards against this move bishop c5 by just dropping the queen back. Also covers the f4 square. Also covers c2 in case b4 comes as well. So multi-purpose move, queen d2. Bishop e7. And now Nepo carries out this straightforward plan just to attack the knight. And the knight doesn't really have a lot of good squares to go to. b4 hits the knight, which comes back to e2. So white always has to be a little bit careful of this. Queen c2, the queen is protecting, and of course black has to be careful of this one, but black's queen is protecting there. d5, well, it's clear that Carlsen needs to counterattack here, because if we just go back a move, then bishop g4 looks quite uncomfortable for black. So d5, breaking this point down and trying to get this bishop into play. So you know, you wouldn't really want to exchange here for white, because that would bring that bishop into play. So bishop g4 hits the knight. g6 defends the knight. And here, well, when I looked this up, in fact, this position has been seen before in the game between Anand and Van Foreest, Zagreb 2021. And there Anand played bishop d4 and won a very nice game indeed. But Nepo simply took on h5 and then played knight f4, which is also extremely dangerous. So having damaged the pawns in this way, then it's unlikely that the black king will reach the safety of the king side. It's just not a very safe position. And now the knight spins in to take h5. So pawn takes pawn, knight takes h5, and pawn takes f3. Wow, we got a really double-edged situation where this pawn, that's a huge pawn, protected by the bishop. On the plus side for white, black's king is still in the middle. And, well, those rooks are split. That is very dangerous for black. And white is very well coordinated here. And here Nepo played bishop f4, which certainly looks inviting. However, knight f6 was the move. Let's just have a quick look at this. Now, if king f8, then bishop f4 and let's say bishop e5, and you can see that, well, that king doesn't look so great on f8. You know, knight d7 check could open up the line to the rook there from the bishop. Black is in some trouble. And if bishop takes, well, this is troublesome. There are several threats here. I mean, one, you've got to watch this pawn. You know, the king is still in the middle. Castling kingside doesn't look too appetizing when there's an open g-file here. Let me just show you a couple of tactics. If a5, here's a lovely move, bishop b6, and that just overloads the queen. So if the queen takes, then check, check, and that's mate in a couple of moves. And if queen c6, then that is mate on d8. That's rather nice. And if, let's say, bishop d5, blocking the d-file, I mean, that feels like a logical move, just to block the d-file. Bishop looks good. In fact, queen takes b4 is a pretty good move, checking. Well, the king steps to the side, and then there's a check here, and, well, that rook coming. Okay, this should be winning for white. So knight f6 was the move, and then black would have a really difficult defensive task. But remember, this is a rapid play game. 15 minutes for all your moves, plus 10 seconds increment per move. However, fast time control, you haven't got time to calculate everything through. And Nepo played bishop f4, which also looks very inviting. And Carlsen should probably play queen c6 here. He played queen d8. If he can exchange queens, that's all well and good. But queen e3 hits the queen. Bishop d5. And here, if Nepo just played b3, shutting out the bishop and maintaining a strong position, then he's still doing well. Instead, he chose this moment to play knight f6, and it's just not as strong. Here Carlsen played, I think, an excellent practical move. Rook g8. Making sure that white doesn't claim the g-file. So if rook g1, then rook g2 shuts out white's rook. And obviously, you know, that exchange leaves that pawn just one square from queening. So rook g8 is an excellent move. And after rook e1, okay, building up. But rook g2, and suddenly this is quite a serious counterattack on white's king. If rook c1 defending, queen takes pawn, and suddenly, you know, black is breaking out. Queen a7 from Nepo. But actually queen d7 is quite a simple response. Just blocking the queen out. The endings are obviously fantastic for black. with that pawn. Queen came back. Rook takes c2. Ooh, it's looking serious now. Watch out for here. Bishop c1. And now Carlsen finished with a flourish. Rook takes bishop. If rook takes, then the queen is lost. And king takes, queen c6 check. King b1. And queen a4 is very nasty. So mate in a couple threatened with this one. Rook d2. And bishop takes a2 check was the final move. If king c1, then queen c6 here, and bishop b3 spells the end. So in the end, well, a convincing victory looking at this final position, but actually coming back to this position, well, Nepo missed a really big shot with knight f6. And I think this is the thing with Sicilian. It is so double-edged. Working this out is incredibly difficult. I mean, Nepo played this move a couple of moves later, but it wasn't as effective. I think in a rapid play game, almost impossible to play a perfect game, particularly when it's as complicated as this. Even in a classical game, this is really difficult. So Carlsen gambled, and actually I have to say, he was already one up in the match, and to play this rather than just e4, e5, that took a lot of courage, but it paid off for Carlsen, and with that victory he won the Airthings Masters 2022. So there we go, tournament over. But Nepo played extremely well, and can't have been easy for him to play under the current circumstances. Hope that's, well, anyway, I don't need to say any more. Okay, listen, folks, thanks very much for watching.